Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. Hanlon's razor states, "Never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity." So let's try to figure out if our governments are being driven by malice or if the problem is just that they're not very intelligent. A Google News search for battery shortage turns up all kinds of bad news for electric vehicles. Basically, the problem is that there's a lack of raw materials, which is going to cause huge problems for the industry in the next few years. Volkswagen says the shortage of raw materials is a massive problem. The battery shortage could threaten national security. Global metal shortage sabotages the electric car revolution. But governments are undaunted by reality, and they're telling people that they're going to have to drive electric vehicles in the future, even though it will be impossible to build enough batteries, and the batteries are going to become extremely expensive. And at the same time, governments are planning on building huge battery packs to store electricity for times when the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining. This also will be impossible and will aggravate the problem for electric vehicles. I clicked on one of the articles. Stellantis has a plan to evade battery shortage. But the article actually says no such thing. The CEO expects that the raw materials needed to produce the batteries will be tough to come by 5 years from now, and he's working hard to figure out a plan. Nothing is off the table when looking for solutions when it comes to acquiring the raw materials, getting more production sites running, or even working with the government. If the raw materials don't exist, working with the government probably isn't going to help very much. At the bottom of the article it says, despite the impending shortages and the possible supply chain issues, most automakers are full speed ahead in electric vehicles. Automakers understand that the future of the automotive world will be electric. Right now we have a wonderful, efficient mechanism for transportation called gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles, but governments are trying to force people into a paradigm which isn't going to work. Now let's go back in time to the year 1900. 38% of American cars were electric 120 years ago. Now that number's down to about 1%. But there were a lot of practical problems with using electric vehicles. One was a lack of charging stations. Another problem is that it took a long time to recharge the batteries. A third problem is that the batteries degraded and had to be replaced, and that was very expensive. And electric vehicles had a short range and had to be recharged often. So electric vehicles had exactly the same problems 120 years ago as they do now. In 1883, Thomas Edison said that all the hype about storage batteries getting better was a scam. But by 1910, Edison realized he could make money off the scam and started telling people that he'd solved the problem with storage batteries for electric vehicles. In 1911, Edison went to Europe and told them that electric vehicles were their future. He said he had an electric vehicle battery which could be recharged in 10 minutes. That's much faster than any EV batteries can be charged now. Gasoline in Paris was 4 times as expensive as the United States, and in London it was twice as expensive as the United States. The issues surrounding electric vehicles in 1911 were the same as they are now. Just like in 1911, electric vehicles are being sold on the basis of it's cheaper than using gas. But in many parts of the world, it's more expensive to recharge a Tesla than it is to fill up an automobile with gasoline. The scam is the same now as it was 110 years ago, but there's one huge difference. In 1910, the free market caused electric vehicles to fail. But now we have governments trying to force the public into a paradigm which won't work. We have a perfectly good transportation system now, but governments are sabotaging it and trying to replace it with something that won't work. Richard Feynman said, "Reality must take precedence over public relations, for nature cannot be fooled." So what is your vote? Are our governments malicious, or are we just being governed by idiots? Toto votes both of the above. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki and Upla on the web at realclimatescience.com.